We warned schools and parents to expect this. This is what happens when you're living with a pandemic. I remember being criticised for having a staged return to schools in New South Wales, and I don't regret that for a second, because what we've done is make sure we've got enough medical supplies, the procedures and guidelines are clear, so that when something like this happens, everybody can kick into action, and that's exactly what happened on this occasion. All the contacts have been identified, the schools have been shut down for deep cleaning, and they'll reopen when it's safe to do so. But is it a reason to shut down every single school across the state? Of course not. But does it give us pause to reflect and say we can't let our guard down? Absolutely. We can't get complacent, especially as restrictions ease. And we always know and knew that as restrictions ease, you are going to get more cases. That stands to reason. But you can't also live isolated in your homes forever. So it's about getting that right balance between managing the virus, but also having some normality to our lives as well.
How bad would it have to get before you reinstate restrictions?
Well, look, there's a number of things we look at. We look at the rate of, obviously, community transmission. We look at how many people are transferring the virus to others. And we look at a whole number of factors. So it's really a judgment call at the time. We're nowhere near that now, Peter, I'm happy to say. But having said that, things can change very quickly. And we're urging everybody with the mildest symptoms to come forward and get tested. We're lucky in New South Wales. We have almost an unlimited supply of testing equipment. So we're urging people to come forward and get tested. In other parts of the world, nobody can even get a test. So we have a good challenge in saying we want to get to at least 8,000 tests a day. We nearly got there in the last 24 hours, but our target is at least 8,000 tests a day, because then we know if there's any undetected level of transmission in the community from unknown sources that we can try to identify those.
Kerry Chant has said that New South Wales will be unlikely to face another major wave. Are you that confident?
Well, look, those comments were potentially taken out of context as they were reported comments. They weren't exactly her comments directly. I would say this: we've beaten the virus up to this point. But it can come back very quickly, and that's why we can't let our guard down. We have to make sure that we keep our social distancing, our hygiene, and most importantly, protect those most vulnerable. Because, ironically, it's people in their 20s who are the highest demographic of getting the virus and spreading the virus, but it's those over a certain age that are succumbing to the disease in the main. So it can affect anyone of any age. If you have an underlying health condition or respiratory challenges, obviously that gives you, unfortunately, a higher risk of succumbing to the disease. But we know that for the elderly in particular, we need to protect them. And that's important to remember, that even though you might think you're bulletproof, unfortunately, those around you may not be. And that's why it's really important to maintain social distancing and hygiene and to stick to the rules.
So just to clarify, you still believe there could be a second wave?
Absolutely, there could. The reason why we've been able to get to where we have in New South Wales, we've had nearly 17,000 people from overseas come through our hotel quarantine and go to all the states in which they live. They haven't all been New South Wales residents. So we've borne the brunt of those cases that have come in from overseas as a state. And to get the number down from 200 and something cases a day down to a couple a day is a huge achievement. But it means, and it's a good reminder, that we can go backwards at any stage if we don't have vigilance. And as we've seen in tragic circumstances, if the disease gets into an aged care home or it gets into a facility where it's difficult to maintain the spread, we know that it can take lives, and that's why we have to be extra careful.
Just a few other things. Premier, your police minister, some video has emerged of him being involved in a road rage incident. I know he's been cleared, but is this behaviour acceptable?
Look, that was raised some time ago, and it shows that everybody is human, but it also shows really that all of us have to be careful at all times, and the minister is being cleared of any wrongdoing, and we all move on. But
is it human to be involved in a road rage incident and actually getting out of your car and being quite aggressive towards someone?
Well, look, I think at the end of the day, we can't really judge until we're in that situation ourselves, and we expect all of our citizens to do the right thing by each other, and that goes for everybody.
He's been, quite a lightning rod for criticism. He went missing during the bushfires. There is this incident as well. Does he still have your support, your full support?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So you're not worried about any of that criticism?
Well, no, we get criticised all the time, and the standards are you working hard, are you doing a good job, and are you working for the betterment of the citizens? And I think he answers yes to all those questions.
OK, just on to the Prime Minister's speech yesterday, his JobMaker program, you know, and his attempts for IR reform and possibly tax reform after that as well. I mean, what are your thoughts on this, and what sort of a role can New South Wales play in this?
Well, look, I think we should be extremely ambitious. What the pandemic is teaching us, that all of us can do better with less red tape, with less process and more action. And I also feel that what the pandemic has done is shaken us into realising what's important, what the priorities should be. And I think it's given us a deep sense of how can we make our nation better and stronger. And I think we should grab that opportunity. I think the public wants us to take control of the virus. They also are desperate for us to get out of this economic shock. And for hundreds of thousands of people in New South Wales who don't have a job anymore, and for the hundreds of thousands of others who might risk having a job, I know that the community is desperate for us to recover as soon as we can. And I think we should be ambitious. We should take this opportunity to become leaders in our region of how to manage an economy and really develop the skills of the future. And also, New South Wales has always had a plan to increase our advanced manufacturing capacity. I mean, for decades we were locked out of manufacturing because of wages policy, but now you need highly technical, highly skilled people to be able to conduct advanced manufacturing, which is very digital these days. And that's where New South Wales can have a really positive role for the nation and for the region. And I'm encouraged.
Sorry, I was just going to ask
I'm encouraged by what that could do.
Yeah. I was just going to ask, what do you see as the key area? I mean, I know that your Treasurer has talked about, you know, reducing or getting rid of, abolishing stamp duty and replacing it with a land tax. So is that something that is on your agenda? What is the key marker for you?
I think the outcomes that all of us want to achieve, especially for people who tend to have my view of the world in terms of philosophy, is less burden on the citizen and more incentive for people to reach their potential and have good choices in life. So, you know, there are a lot of inefficiencies in all systems around the world, and we're not isolated from that. And I think there's opportunities for us to see how we can reduce the burden of our citizens, but increase incentive and innovation, and really allow our population to have the choices to reach their potential. At the end of the day, why our government's here is to keep the communities safe and to allow people to have a great quality of life. And anything which inhibits that, I think we need to look at. And from my perspective, I would like to see greater reform across the nation. I would like to see improvements in the Commonwealth State financial relationship, and these are things that have been spoken about for decades, but I think it's an opportunity for us now that we've demonstrated you can make decisions quickly, not perfectly, but quickly, get rid of the red tape and move forward together. I think there's a great opportunity. OK, just on to National Cabinet on Friday, Premier. Are you expecting a frosty reception with the Queensland Premier? No, I mean, it's not like I haven't raised these issues before. I've raised them in National Cabinet many times. And, you know, if I'm asked the question, I'm going to answer as directly and as frankly as I can. I'm the Premier of the largest state in Australia. I owe it to my citizens to speak up on what I think is in the best interest of our state and our nation. And I'll keep doing that. And I think we can respectfully have these discussions. We're not going to agree all of the time. It wouldn't work if everybody agreed on everything all of the time. But certainly my job is to put my citizens on a path that's positive and optimistic, and we can do that better when we don't have these artificial borders inside Australia. So you will be raising it with her again on Friday and putting more pressure on her to open that border? Well, I've raised it a number of times, and it's not just her, to be fair to her. It's all premiers who've decided to close their borders, and we've seen already cases go up in some states that have closed borders. Closing a border does not prevent you getting cases. It doesn't prevent people from getting the virus or spreading the virus. And what it does is it hinders our ability to get some of those jobs back the nation has lost, and it hinders our ability to grow as a nation during what has been a very traumatic, it's still a traumatic time. I think we're all relieved the virus hasn't been as disastrous here as it's been in other parts of the world, but I don't think we've got our head around the economic shock and how long that's going to last, and I think we really need to turn our attention to getting that balance better. Well, just on shocks, I mean, there's just the story that emerged yesterday from the bushfire inquiry that hundreds of people had died from smoke inhalation over that summer period. I mean, did that shock you? Oh, to be honest, it didn't shock me because in New South Wales, we've lived the horror of that season and seen the devastating impact it's had on families. And for some people, they're still in shock. If you've lost a loved one or you've lost your home, you've had to move and you're still trying to rebuild. I mean, that's a harrowing experience for anybody. And sometimes those medical conditions can last a lifetime and impact you adversely. And also the mental anguish, changes lives forever. So I'm not surprised at the impact it's had. It's been horrendous. And I'm proud of all the citizens of New South Wales. We've had a shocking time last year and this year, but everybody's come together, and that's the spirit with which I hope will continue.